Book TV recently visited Capitol Hill to ask members of Congress what they're reading this summer.
Well, I plan on doing four things specifically. The first one that I'm in the middle is Bully Pulpit, which is, of course, about Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. As an old history teacher, I specifically wanted to go into that because it's a fascinating era. And I should have taken from the title, The Bully Pulpit, they're going to talk a lot about journalism. So the author did go into a whole lot about the journalists of the period of time and gave, I think, short shrift to some of the history that I really wanted, but it whet my appetite for it. So for example, last year I read a book about Speaker Cannon. The relationship Cannon had with Teddy Roosevelt was something I thought would be fascinating, barely mentioned at all. So I need to go into deeper in that. But I'm at least through it now. Taft has been elected. Let's see what happens from here on in. Roosevelt's in Africa. Life is good. So that's the first one, and we're going to go through. Then, since I love baseball, I'm going to pick up a baseball book again called the Bullpen Gospels, right? Bullpen Gospels, which I actually have read before. So I want to reread this thing. It's about a kid who becomes a relief pitcher on the major leagues after a long wait coming up through the minors. But it is written in such a funny style, I have to admit. In the first 3 chapters, I was laughing out loud, which was kind of embarrassing on the planes when I'm sitting next to people. But it's a well-written book, and it's cool about baseball. It has a lot of the insides of what's taking place in that era. The fourth is, last year one of my staffers gave me a book about Joe Cannon, the speaker. This year he's going to continue on with that trend and give me one about Sam Rayburn. So that gives me 2 of the 4 great speakers in the history of the House we'll have covered. But what to me is so fascinating about Rayburn is not only was he the longest serving Speaker of the House, he was also Speaker of the House when the seniority system ran this place. So he could not reward or punish anyone with any kind of appointments. And he was the one that always said, you know, when I meet a chairman of a committee, I bow at the waist. He got his way, but he had to do it through persuasion and cajoling. Well, whatever he did, that's what I hope to find out. What was his secret of being such a powerful force here in the House without having some of the overt tools that other speakers had to force compliance, because he had to do it just by the force of his personality. So I hope that's in there. And then the last one is another retread. When I was teaching history, we always did 1776 to try and give people a concept of what it was like during the signing of the Declaration. Realizing full hand that it's close history, but it's not history. And since it was written basically in the end of the 60s before it was produced, there's a lot of 1960 concepts that are thrown in there. And also the characters are a compilation. So John Adams in the play is really a compilation of Sam Adams and John Adams. But I think the authors have done a good job in capturing the personalities of the people who were involved. And that comes out so clearly in the play. But the other thing that I like about it, which is fascinating to me, is they used actual language and actual writings of these individuals. So after we've done the play several times, I read through it, then you read other stuff that's written by these individuals, like, wow, I remember that was actually in the play. And it's kind of cool the way the authors, I think, have done a brilliant job in weaving an actual history. Because let's face it, the language style is much different in the 1700s than it is today. But they were able to weave that into something that was very entertaining and enjoyable. And when I was teaching school, it was great. Although, I do have to admit, at one time I had a kid that was debating me on whether this was realistic or not. And I said, yeah, it was pretty close to history. And he finally looked at me and said, you mean they sang back then? So I had to admit, no, this is a musical. They didn't really sing. And then we went on with it. And at one time we were watching the movie, and he turned around and he said, what war are they talking about? And I finally said, the Revolutionary War. He waited a few minutes and then said, did we win it? I realized I had a lot of work to do with this kid.
Book TV wants to know what you're reading this summer. Tweet us your answer at BookTV, or you can post it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/BookTV.